The shattered world of Mr. Emeka, a robust 35-year-old, once commanded a flourishing tech company in a vibrant Lagos neighborhood. His life was a tapestry woven with threads of success: a sleek SUV, a grand villa overlooking sprawling cityscapes, and a wife as dazzling as the morning sun, Chiamaka. But fate, in its cruel capriciousness, had other plans. One sweltering afternoon, while driving back from a business negotiation, his SUV skidded off the unpaved road during a sudden downpour. He survived, but the pronouncement from the hospital bed echoed in his ears, a chilling death knell to his old life: "You're paralyzed from the waist down." Chiamaka, his glamorous wife, initially shed tears that seemed to flow endlessly. However, as the weeks bled into months, her grief morphed into something cold and distant. The woman who had once showered him with affection now frequented lavish parties in the city, her online presence ablaze with flashy pictures, while Emeka's pleas for attention went unheard. "I have a life to live, Emeka," she declared one evening, her voice laced with ice. "I didn't sign up to be a nurse." When he implored her to stay, she retorted with a threat: "Then get a house helper, or I'll file for divorce." Emeka, with no other recourse, posted a job advertisement for a live-in house helper who could cook, clean, and provide basic care. And so, amid the swirling dust of his shattered world, Tunde entered their lives. A glimmer of hope for Tunde had never laid eyes on such a grand villa. He stood at the towering, ornate gate, clutching his small, worn bag, his shoes scuffed, and his heart a trembling bird. At just 22 years old, Tunde had known more sorrow than solace. Orphaned at 5 when his parents succumbed to a mysterious illness, he had been passed from one distant relative to another, an unwanted burden. Some families exploited him for chores, others meted out harsh beatings for every minor infraction. He was an only child, with no one to shield him, no one to call his own. His only companions were his unwavering faith and the faint hope that one day, life would finally smile upon him. The moment he received the call about the house helper job, he didn't hesitate. It mattered not that the villa was nestled in the affluent part of the city, nor did he care about the identity of the wealthy owner. What mattered was the chance to work, to eat, and perhaps, finally, to escape the relentless grip of suffering. The gates creaked open, and a stern-looking man in a sharp black suit strode towards him. "You're the house helper?" he asked, his gaze raking over Tunde like a delivery package. "Yes, sir. My name is Tunde." The man nodded curtly. "Follow me." As Tunde stepped inside, his jaw slackened. The compound was a verdant paradise, resembling a 5-star resort. A colossal fountain cascaded in the center, and 2 luxury SUVs gleamed under the Nigerian sun. The main house itself was an architectural marvel, something he'd only ever seen in movies. The man led him inside, where the air hummed with opulence: gleaming marble floors, rich golden curtains, towering mirrors. But something else hung heavy in the atmosphere, a palpable sadness, a coldness that wasn't from an air conditioner, but from profound emptiness. They walked past the opulent living room, ascended a grand staircase, and entered a hushed hallway. They stopped before a closed door. "Whatever happens, don't speak unless spoken to," the man warned, his voice low. "He doesn't like noise." Tunde nodded, his heart hammering against his ribs. The door opened slowly, and there he was, Emeka. He sat in a wheelchair, clad in a simple white shirt and black trousers. His face was drawn, his beard untrimmed, his eyes hollow. Yet, even in this diminished state, he exuded an undeniable aura of power. His presence filled the room. Tunde bowed slightly. "Good afternoon, sir." Emeka looked at him. "Leave us," he said to the man. The man exited, closing the door softly. A long, heavy silence stretched between them. "You don't look like a nurse," Emeka finally stated. "I'm not," Tunde replied softly. "I'm just here to help with cleaning and cooking." "Are you afraid of me?" Tunde looked up. "No, sir." Emeka raised an eyebrow. "Everyone is." Tunde offered a faint smile. "I've seen pain, sir. I know what it looks like. You're not someone to be afraid of." For the first time in months, Emeka chuckled, a small, weary sound. He scrutinized Tunde closely. There was something honest, real, and different about him. "You'll be staying in the back quarters. There's a small room there. My meals must be served on time. The house must stay clean, and don't go around the mansion taking pictures or poking your nose where it doesn't belong. I understand if my wife gives you instructions, obey her." Tunde nodded again, though something about the mention of his wife made Emeka's voice drop, a hint of pain lingering there. He looked away. "That will be all." Tunde left quietly and followed the guard to his tiny room behind the house. It was small but clean, a bed, a fan, a wardrobe. It was more than he had ever had. He dropped his bag and sat down, exhaling a long sigh. Later that evening, he went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. He noticed Chiamaka, the wife, lounging in the living room, engrossed in her phone. She looked like a fashion model, long, manicured nails, heavy makeup, designer clothes. But the look she cast at Tunde was one of unadulterated disgust. "So, you're the house helper?" she sneered. "Yes, madam." Chiamaka hissed. "Make sure you clean the master bedroom twice a day. If I find dust, you're out." "Yes, madam." "And don't get comfortable. My husband is sick, not stupid. I know how boys like you behave." Tunde blinked. "I'm just here to work, madam." Chiamaka didn't respond. She merely walked out, slamming the door. Tunde swallowed his pride and continued cooking. He had encountered women like Chiamaka before, proud, empty, and angry. Tunde only prayed that his tenure in such a home would be brief. He took the food to Emeka's room. "I hope it's not too salty," he said with a small smile. Emeka looked at the tray. It smelled of home-cooked food. He took a spoonful, paused, and looked at Tunde. "This is actually good." Tunde beamed. "Thank you, sir." He looked at him again. "What did you say your name was?" "Tunde." He nodded. "You have a kind face, Tunde." Tunde's heart softened a bit. "And you have tired eyes, sir." Emeka paused, surprised. "No one has ever said that to me before." "Well, no one has ever looked closely enough," Tunde replied. That night, Tunde returned to his room and knelt beside his bed. "Lord," he prayed, "I don't know why you brought me here, but please use me and help Mr. Emeka find joy again." He wiped a tear and lay down to sleep. Tunde was already sweeping the hallway when Chiamaka tiptoed through the front door at 6 a.m., clad in a tight red gown with glittering high heels in her hand. Her makeup was smudged, and her hair looked like she'd been dancing all night. She didn't notice Tunde at first, but when she looked up and saw him, her face contorted in irritation. "What are you staring at?" she snapped. Tunde bowed slightly. "Good morning, madam." Chiamaka hissed and walked upstairs without a word. Tunde watched her go, a strange feeling in his chest. The madam of the house was returning home at sunrise while her sick husband lay helpless in bed. Something didn't feel right. Later that morning, Emeka called Tunde to his room. "You're up early," he said as Tunde adjusted his blanket. "I've always been an early bird," he replied. "I like to start work before the sun fully wakes up." Emeka smiled weakly. "I noticed. You're different." Tunde was silent for a moment, then gently asked, "Sir, would you like to sit outside today? A little sunlight might help your mood." Emeka hesitated. "I haven't gone outside in months. Maybe it's time to try. I'll push you in the wheelchair, just for a few minutes." After a while, he nodded. "Okay." Tunde helped him get dressed, then slowly wheeled him to the backyard garden. The air was fresh, birds chirped, the flowers danced in the breeze. Emeka closed his eyes. "I forgot how fresh air feels." "You've been trapped inside for too long," Tunde said softly. "Even a tree needs sunlight to grow." Emeka looked at him. "You speak like someone who's read a lot." Tunde smiled. "I never went to school properly, but I read anything I find. Books saved me from many lonely nights." For the next hour, they talked, not about pain, not about sickness, just simple things: flowers, books, dreams. Tunde was the first person in a long time who treated Emeka like a human being, and not just a broken body. But their moment was cut short when Chiamaka's voice rang through the garden. "What is going on here?" She stood by the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes burning. Tunde stood quickly. "We were just getting some fresh air, madam." Chiamaka walked up to them and glared at Emeka. "You didn't ask me before going outside." Emeka frowned. "Chiamaka, I don't need your permission to get sunlight." Chiamaka turned to Tunde. "Go back inside." Tunde quietly wheeled Emeka toward the door, saying nothing. That evening, Emeka confronted Chiamaka in their bedroom. "Where were you last night?" Chiamaka rolled her eyes. "Out. You're not my father, Emeka. I'm your husband." "A husband who can't even walk," she said with a bitter laugh. "Do you know what it feels like to be stuck with a man who used to be a lion, but is now just a shadow?" Emeka's heart broke. "You said you loved me." "I loved the powerful man you used to be. Now I feel like a prisoner. I have my life to live. I won't waste my youth changing diapers and pushing wheelchairs." He stared at her. "So that's it? You've moved on?" She leaned closer, her voice cold. "I've been moved on. I only stayed because of one thing." Tears filled Emeka's eyes. "Then why don't you just leave?" "Because I want everything that comes with this marriage. The house, the cars, the luxury. If you're not careful, you'll lose it all." Chiamaka laughed. "You? What can you do in that wheelchair? Threaten me with your pity?" Emeka turned away, broken. Outside the room, Tunde had heard part of the argument. His heart was heavy. He returned to the kitchen and sat quietly, wiping his eyes. He didn't know why, but Emeka's pain felt personal. The next day, Chiamaka called for Tunde. "Take this dress to the dry cleaners and come straight back. And don't try anything funny. Tunde nodded and left with the dress. On his way back, he stopped by a small pharmacy to buy antiseptic for a wound on his hand. While waiting in line, he overheard two women chatting. "Did you see Mrs. Emeka at the club again last night?" one said. "Yes. And guess what? She came with that tall man." "What's his name?" "Kunle? The one with the scar on his face." "That one. But she's married. They say her husband can't walk. What's she supposed to do?" Tunde felt his heart sink. So it was true. Chiamaka was seeing another man. Back at the mansion, he served Emeka his lunch. He barely touched the food. "Sir, would you like something else?" He shook his head. "My appetite is gone." Tunde sat across from him. "Gently, sir, life doesn't end in a wheelchair." He looked at him. "How do you stay so hopeful, Tunde? I've lost everything. Before? Parents, home, dignity. But each day I'm alive is a chance to start again." Emeka sighed. "You're stronger than you look. And you're more than your legs, sir. You still have a brain, a heart, a voice. Use them." That night, Emeka couldn't sleep. Tunde's words echoed in his mind. He stared at the ceiling, remembering who he used to be. A fighter, a builder, a man who overcame storms. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to rise again, even from a chair. 3 days passed quietly in the Emeka mansion, but peace was far from the hearts of those inside. Tunde continued his duties without complaint, sweeping, cleaning, helping Emeka to the bathroom, cooking warm meals, and sometimes just sitting quietly by his side. He had never known luxury, yet he never acted impressed by it. He was focused, grateful, humble. Emeka, on the other hand, was changing little by little. He started requesting to sit outside more often. He asked Tunde to bring him newspapers. One afternoon, he even asked him to help him sit at his home office desk, just to feel it again. "You can't type," Tunde said kindly. "Then I'll think," he replied. "Maybe even dream again." Tunde smiled. There was life coming back to the man who had once given up. But one evening changed everything. It was almost 9 p.m. The house was quiet. Tunde had just finished washing the dishes when he noticed Chiamaka walk past the kitchen, dressed in a tight black gown, glittering heels, and red lipstick. Her perfume filled the air. Tunde stepped forward. "Madam, should I pack dinner for you?" Chiamaka turned sharply. "Who asked you to talk to me?" "I was only..." Chiamaka raised her hand. "Mind your business, orphan." Tunde lowered his head. "Sorry, madam." Chiamaka rolled her eyes and walked out. Tunde looked through the window and watched as Chiamaka got into a black car that pulled up just outside the gate. Inside was a man, tall, muscular, with dreadlocks and a scar on his neck. Tunde's heart raced. That must be the Kunle they spoke about at the pharmacy. He ran to Emeka's room. "Sir, I'm sorry, I don't mean to bother you, but I think there's something you should see." Emeka looked at him, confused. "What is it?" "I think your wife is going out again with someone." Emeka's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" Tunde hesitated. "I saw the car. It wasn't a taxi." The man looked familiar. Emeka was quiet. Tunde continued softly, "I didn't want to say anything before, but I heard two women talking about her at the pharmacy. They said she's been going out with a man named Kunle. They've seen her at the club almost every night. Emeka clenched his fist. Bring me my phone. Tunde brought it quickly. Emeka opened the security app his tech company had built. It allowed him to check all CCTV cameras in and around the house. He clicked on the front gate footage. There she was, Chiamaka, blowing a kiss to the man in the car, and then the car sped off. Emeka stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't say a word. His lips tightened, his face turned pale. Sir, Tunde began. He lifted a hand. Thank you, Tunde. That'll be all. Tunde bowed and left the room, his heart pounding. Emeka didn't sleep that night. He stayed by the window, his mind in turmoil. The woman he married, the one he gave everything to, was not just careless, she was cheating on him, boldly and proudly. And she had the audacity to live in his house, eat his food, and mock his condition. Anger burned in his chest, but beneath the anger was pain, so much pain. He thought back to the night of the accident. Chiamaka had cried in the hospital. She held his hand and said, "We'll get through this, baby. I'll never leave you." But those words had been empty. She had left him, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. She had left him the moment he could no longer stand on his feet. I may be in a chair, Emeka thought, but I'm still the man who built an empire from scratch. I still have a mind, a heart. I still have power. The next morning, he asked Tunde to wheel him to his study. Are you okay, sir? Tunde asked gently. I'm more than okay, he said. I'm awake. Inside the study, he picked up his iPad, connected it to his wireless keyboard, and began typing slowly, one letter at a time. Tunde watched silently, amazed. Hours passed. Emeka didn't eat. He didn't speak. At noon, his lawyer arrived, a smart-looking man in a grey suit. Mr. Emeka, the lawyer said, I came as quickly as I could. Sit down, Emeka said. We need to talk about my will and my marriage. Tunde stood in a corner, pretending not to listen. I want everything changed, Emeka said. If I die, Chiamaka gets nothing. Not the house, not the company shares, not the cars, nothing. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. Understood. And I want you to begin drafting a divorce plan quietly. Yes, sir. Tunde watched as Emeka gave the instructions with calm strength. This wasn't the broken man he had met 2 weeks ago. This was Emeka, the lion who was learning how to roar again. That night, Chiamaka returned home drunk. She didn't notice Emeka waiting for her in the hallway. Had a good night? He asked coldly. She jumped. What? What are you doing here? I wanted to stretch my legs, he replied sarcastically, though that's something you wouldn't understand. Chiamaka hissed. So now you want to monitor my movements? I've been watching everything, Chiamaka. Her eyes widened. He rolled forward. Kunle, right? Scar on the neck, drives a black car. She gasped. You don't even hide it anymore. You walk out like a queen, forgetting that this is my kingdom, my house, my name. Chiamaka fumbled. Emeka, He raised a hand. Don't insult me with lies. From today, I am not your weak husband. I've already spoken to my lawyer. If you want to leave, leave, but you'll walk away with nothing." Chiamaka screamed. "You can't do this." "I can, and I just did." She lunged forward to slap him, but Tunde stepped between them. "Don't," Tunde said quietly, looking Chiamaka in the eyes. "Don't lower yourself further." Chiamaka froze, then with a bitter laugh, she turned and stormed off. Emeka looked at Tunde, his eyes red. "I'm sorry you had to see that." Tunde shook his head. "I'm just glad you finally stood up, even without your legs." He smiled faintly. Chiamaka was in her husband's room. She knelt down beside his wheelchair, crying, holding his hand tightly. "Emeka, please." "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I know I messed up. I've changed, I swear I've changed. Please don't leave me." Emeka didn't say a word. Chiamaka continued, "That guy you saw me with, he's my cousin. I forgot to introduce him to you properly. It was just a misunderstanding. The devil is trying to ruin our marriage, baby. Please don't fall for it." She cried harder, shaking her head. "I've been so foolish. I didn't realize what I had until I almost lost it. You are my husband. I still love you. Please, Emeka, please forgive me. Let us start over. I will do better, I promise." Emeka looked at her for a long moment, then he said calmly, "I'll tell my lawyer to hold on. But listen to me carefully, I will observe you for a while. If you don't change, Chiamaka, you're out of my house." Chiamaka wiped her tears quickly and smiled. "Thank you, baby. Thank you. I won't disappoint you." She kissed his hand, stood up, and walked out of the room. But the moment she stepped into the hallway, her expression changed. She walked quickly to her room, shut the door, and burst into quiet laughter. "This man thinks I have time for him," she said to herself. "This man thinks I have time for him," she said to her reflection. "He'll regret ever doubting me. I'll deal with him slowly. He has no idea what I'm capable of." Later that evening, Emeka was in his study when Tunde entered with his dinner. "Thank you, Tunde," he said softly. "Please sit." Tunde sat across from him. "My wife came to me again," Emeka began. Tunde looked at him. "What did she say this time?" "She begged me, said she had changed, claimed the man I saw her with is her cousin, said the devil was trying to ruin our marriage." Tunde blinked. "Do you believe her, sir?" Emeka sighed. "No, but I told her I'll observe her for a while." Tunde nodded slowly. "I still don't trust her," Emeka added. "That's why I want you to help me." Tunde frowned. "How, sir?" "Help me put a close eye on her. I want to know what she's doing behind my back." Tunde hesitated. "Sir, do you think this is a great idea?" Emeka looked at him. "I know what I'm doing." Tunde was silent for a moment, then spoke gently. "Sir, instead of focusing so much on her, why don't you focus on yourself? You've been sitting in this wheelchair for too long. Start exercising again, even small movements. It might help your healing." Emeka looked at him for a long time, then his voice softened. "Tunde." "Yes, sir." "I love you." Tunde blinked. "Sir, what did you say?" "You heard me," Emeka said, his voice steady. I love you, Tunde. From the first day you came here, you've been the light in this house. You've helped me more than anyone. Tunde stood up gently, avoiding his eyes. Sir, please don't say things that can't happen. You're still married, and I'm just your house helper. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked quietly out of the room. Emeka sat alone in silence, staring at the door where he disappeared, his heart full. Chiamaka sat on the living room couch, her legs crossed, scrolling through her phone with a smirk on her face. When she heard Tunde passing by, she called out gently, Tunde. Tunde stopped. Yes, madam. Come and sit with me. I want to talk to you. Tunde hesitated but obeyed. He sat at the edge of the sofa, hands folded on his lap. Chiamaka smiled sweetly. Tell me something, do you want to further your education? Tunde looked surprised. Yes, madam. I would love to go to the university. It has always been my dream. Chiamaka leaned closer. How would you feel if I helped you travel abroad for your education? Tunde gasped. Really? You would do that for me? Of course, Chiamaka said with a fake smile. You'll attend a good public school there. Life will be better for you. You deserve more than just cleaning this big house every day. Tunde's heart jumped. Thank you, madam. But, may I ask, why are you saying all this? Chiamaka's smile slowly faded. Her eyes turned serious. I need you to do something for me, she said in a low voice. Tunde blinked. What is it, madam? Chiamaka looked around, then pulled out a small white packet from her handbag. She placed it gently in Tunde's palm. Put this in my husband's food. Tunde looked down at the powder, then up at Chiamaka, confused. Madam, what is this? Chiamaka leaned back. It's just something to help him get better. He needs to relax more. I'm trying to help him. Why don't you give it to him yourself, madam? Tunde asked softly. Chiamaka's smile vanished completely. Her voice turned sharp. Don't be foolish. My husband doesn't like taking medicine. He'll throw it away if he sees it. Can't you get that, you dumb village boy? Tunde's mouth opened slightly, stunned by the insult. I'm sorry, madam, he said, but I can't take this. I can't do it. Chiamaka stood quickly, her eyes wide with anger. You have no choice. Tunde stood too, his hands trembling. Please, madam, don't make me do this. Chiamaka leaned in close, her voice cold and low. If you don't do as I say, I will make you disappear. And if you tell my husband anything, I swear you are gone. Tunde stepped back slowly, his eyes wide with fear. I'll think about it, madam, he said in a shaky voice. Chiamaka smiled again, slowly, like a snake. That's more like it. Tunde hurried back to his room, closed the door, and dropped to the floor. His hands were shaking. The white packet still sat in his palm like a curse. Tears filled his eyes. What do I do now? He whispered. If I tell the truth, she might hurt me. If I stay silent, I'll be part of something evil. He held the packet tightly in his fist. I need to think. I need to be smart. Tunde didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his small bed, the white packet still on the table beside him. The words Chiamaka spoke kept repeating in his head. If you don't do it, I will make you disappear. If you tell my husband, you are gone. He wrapped his arms around himself, shivering not from cold, but from fear. He stood, walked over to the mirror, and stared at his reflection. His eyes were tired, his heart heavy. God, please help me, he whispered. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I'm scared. Suddenly, he had an idea. The next morning, he took the packet and wrapped it in a tissue. He placed it inside a small envelope and hid it deep in his bag. He cleaned the house as usual, acting normal, pretending like nothing was wrong. When he brought Emeka his breakfast, he stood quietly by the door after setting the tray down. Emeka looked up. Is everything all right, Tunde? He opened his mouth, then quickly shut it. Emeka raised an eyebrow. You're not your usual self today. He forced a smile. I'm okay, sir. Emeka studied his face for a moment, then said gently, You can talk to me, Tunde. I told you, you're not just a house helper in this house. His lips trembled. Sir, can we go for a walk later in the garden? Emeka nodded. Of course. After breakfast, he wheeled him out to the garden, where the morning sun was soft and the air felt peaceful. He sat beside him on the bench and looked straight ahead. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly. Emeka looked at him. But I'm scared, he added. He reached for his hand. Nothing will happen to you, Tunde. I promise. I'm here. Tunde took a deep breath. Yesterday, your wife called me into the living room. She asked me if I wanted to go abroad to study. She said she could help me go to school. Emeka nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. Then she gave me something, Tunde continued, a small packet. She said I should put it in your food. Emeka's face darkened. What? She said it was to help you feel better. When I asked her why she couldn't give it to you herself, she insulted me, called me dumb. Then she threatened me, said if I didn't do it or if I told you, I'd disappear. Tunde quickly pulled out the envelope from his bag and handed it to him. This is it. He opened it and saw the packet, still sealed. She said it was medicine, Tunde said, but I was scared. I didn't want to do something wrong. Emeka stared at the packet, his chest rising and falling slowly. Thank you, he said in a low voice, for telling me. Tunde looked down. I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't hurt you, sir. I just couldn't. Emeka turned to him. You've just confirmed everything I've been suspecting. She doesn't care about me. She never did. He looked away, pain in his eyes. This isn't just betrayal. This is evil. I'm sorry. Tunde whispered. No, he said, you did the right thing. And now it's time I do something too. Later that day, Emeka called his lawyer. I want the divorce papers ready, he said firmly. I'm done playing games. He also sent the packet to the lab through his personal assistant, asking for urgent results. By evening, the results returned. It wasn't medicine. It was a slow poison, something that could weaken his organs quietly over time. Emeka's blood ran cold. He didn't call for Chiamaka. He didn't scream or fight. He sat quietly, thinking. The next morning, he told Tunde, "I need you to be careful. Chiamaka may suspect something. Act normal, say nothing. I'll handle this." Tunde nodded, though his heart was racing. Later that day, Chiamaka walked into the kitchen while Tunde was washing dishes. "So," she said with a sly smile, "did he eat it?" Tunde paused for a second, then smiled weakly. "Yes, madam." Chiamaka laughed softly. "Good boy. You may just earn that ticket abroad." Tunde forced a laugh. "Thank you, madam." But inside, he was praying, "Lord, protect me. Don't let her know." That night, as Chiamaka celebrated her success with a glass of wine in her room, Emeka was on the phone with a private investigator and his lawyer. He had everything he needed. The next morning was quiet in the Emeka mansion. Chiamaka walked around with pride in her steps, humming to herself, feeling like she had finally won. Emeka hadn't confronted her. Tunde was acting normal. To her, everything was going perfectly. She walked past the dining area and saw Emeka quietly reading a newspaper. He didn't even look up. She smiled smugly and walked to the kitchen. "Tunde," she called, "make something special for dinner tonight. I feel like celebrating." Tunde nodded. "Yes, madam." But behind his calm reply, his heart was pounding. He knew something was about to happen. Emeka had asked him to be silent and act normal, but he could feel it. Today would not end like every other day. At exactly 4 p.m., the mansion doorbell rang. Tunde peeked from the kitchen and saw two men in suits enter the house. One of them was Emeka's lawyer, the other was the investigator. Chiamaka came downstairs with a curious look. "Who are these people?" she asked. Emeka rolled his wheelchair forward calmly. "Sit down, Chiamaka." She frowned. "Why should I? What's going on?" "Sit," he repeated, his voice sharp this time. Emeka looked at the investigator. "Please, go ahead." The man opened a folder and pulled out photos, images of Chiamaka meeting with Kunle in his car, at restaurants, and at nightclubs. He placed them on the table, one by one. Chiamaka's eyes widened. "What's all this? Are you spying on me?" Emeka didn't flinch. "Keep watching." The investigator then brought out a document from the lab. "This," he said, "is the result of the powder you asked Tunde to put in your husband's food. It's not medicine. It's poison." Chiamaka jumped up. "That's a lie. He's lying." Emeka raised his voice for the first time. "Sit down, Chiamaka." She froze. "I trusted you," Emeka said bitterly. "I gave you everything. You mocked me. You cheated on me. You tried to destroy me quietly." "It's not true," she screamed. "He's lying. That boy is evil. He wants to ruin our marriage." The lawyer placed a thick envelope on the table. "These are your divorce papers. Mr. Emeka has already signed them." Chiamaka's knees went weak. "No. No. Emeka, please. I was desperate. I made mistakes, but it was never meant to go this far. Please forgive me." Emeka turned away. "I forgave you the first time. You used my forgiveness to sharpen your knife. You wanted to kill me, Chiamaka. Tears streamed down her face. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I gave you a choice, Emeka said coldly. You chose betrayal. She fell to the floor, sobbing. Don't leave me. Please. I'll do anything. I'll change for real this time. Emeka looked at her with pain in his eyes. It's too late. The lawyer stood. You have 48 hours to leave this house. The investigator packed up the documents and walked out. Chiamaka slowly stood up, wiping her face. She looked at Tunde, who was standing silently by the kitchen door. This is your fault, she shouted. You wicked orphan. I helped you. I wanted to take you abroad. Tunde didn't speak. He just looked at her calmly. Chiamaka stormed out of the room. 2 days later, Chiamaka left the mansion quietly, her bags packed and her face covered with shame. Tunde was setting the table when Emeka called him softly. Tunde, he said, come sit. Tunde sat quietly beside him. It's over, he said. She's gone. I know, Tunde said gently. He turned to look at him. Thank you. Tunde shook his head. You don't need to thank me, sir. You just needed someone to tell you the truth. He smiled. You've been more than someone. You've been everything. Tunde looked down shyly. I still mean what I said before, Emeka added. But I'm not rushing you. I just want you to know I'm free now, and my heart is open. Meanwhile, Chiamaka got to her boyfriend Kunle's house, the same house she secretly built with him using her husband's money. She knocked angrily. Kunle opened the door, shirtless, holding a drink. He looked surprised. What are you doing here this early? Chiamaka pushed past him and walked inside. This is my house, remember? He shut the door and followed her. Relax, why are you shouting? I'm done pretending. I'm done playing wife. They kicked me out. Kunle, her boyfriend, sat on the couch, looking confused. What happened this time? Chiamaka pointed her finger at him. Emeka caught everything. He knows you're not my cousin. He knows we've been meeting. He even found out I gave Tunde something to put in his food. Kunle stood up slowly. Wait, you mean he knows everything? Yes, she shouted. That useless orphan house helper exposed me. I should have dealt with him earlier. Now he's walking around the house like a queen. Kunle clenched his jaw. So now you're homeless? Chiamaka nodded. He gave me 48 hours. I've left. I have nothing, and it's all because of that stupid house helper. Kunle looked at her carefully. You said his name is Tunde? Yes. And he's living there now? Yes. Chiamaka hissed. And I think Emeka is in love with him. That's the worst part. He trusts him, believes him. She began to pace the room. Everything I worked for, gone, all because of him. He was feeding him with lies. Kunle sat back, his eyes dark with anger. I see. You gave him your youth, and now he's chasing after some poor village boy. Chiamaka nodded. Exactly. He has forgotten who was with him before the accident. Kunle was quiet for a moment, then he picked up his phone and made a call. Yo, he said. I need a job done. Yes, tonight. No delays. Chiamaka froze and looked at him. How much? The voice on the phone asked. Kunle said, Whatever it costs, I'll pay. He ended the call and smiled coldly at Chiamaka. It's time to end this, he said. Since Emeka and that Tunde boy think they've won, we'll show them what real pain looks like. Chiamaka's eyes lit up. You mean they'll disappear? Kunle said, both of them. Gone. Chiamaka smiled wickedly. I can't wait to hear the news that they are gone forever. She laughed loudly, tossing her heels onto the floor. Useless people. Let them feel what I've felt. Kunle handed her a drink. Don't worry, I've called the right guys. They don't leave witnesses. The quiet after Chiamaka's departure was not a void, but a breath held, a silence that hummed with anticipation. Emeka, now fully awakened, did not waste a moment. That very night, his voice calm but resolute, he contacted the police, meticulously detailing the plot, the poison, and the betrayal. He provided every piece of evidence, every photograph, every lab report, laying bare Chiamaka's deceit. Back at the house she had secretly built with her lover's help, the atmosphere was one of triumphant revelry. Chiamaka laughed, a harsh, brittle sound, as the Kunle poured them drinks, toasting to their wicked plans. They envisioned a future free of Emeka, blissfully unaware that their own freedom was rapidly drawing to a close. Just as their laughter echoed through the night, a quiet knock, and then a firm entry. Two Nigerian police officers in crisp uniforms, acting on Emeka's detailed information and swift investigation, moved with precision. The shock on the faces of the Chiamaka and the Kunle was absolute, their celebration turning instantly to terror. The drinks shattered as handcuffs clicked, a harsh, metallic sound that sealed their fate. They were led out, their smug smiles replaced by looks of disbelief and dawning despair. The trial that followed was swift, fueled by irrefutable evidence. In a bustling Nigerian courtroom, Emeka sat tall, his testimony clear and unwavering, a testament to his recovered strength. By his side, Tunde stood as a silent pillar of truth, his calm demeanor speaking volumes. Chiamaka and the Kunle sat in the defendant's box, their once proud demeanors now marred by shame and anger, the weight of their crimes pressing down. The verdict was unanimous, guilty. Justice, often slow, had arrived decisively. A prominent Nigerian newspaper headline blazed with the news of their conviction, their treacherous plot exposed for all to see. In the aftermath, a profound peace settled over Emeka's grand villa. The Emeka now spent his days in his lush garden, the sunlight warm on his face, a genuine smile replacing the hollowness that had once resided there. By his side, Tunde, no longer just a house helper, but a trusted friend and companion, shared in the quiet joy of a new beginning. The kingdom was indeed his own, rebuilt not just with wealth, but with truth, resilience, and the unwavering light of an unexpected bond. The journey of Emeka and Tunde reminds us that even in our darkest hours, hope can emerge from unexpected places. If you or someone you know is facing betrayal, hardship, or feels trapped in a difficult situation, remember that your strength often lies in seeking support and speaking your truth. If you enjoyed Emeka and Tunde's story, please consider liking this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more uplifting narratives and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next story.